Yeah, speak to George, please.
Yes, speaking.
Hey, this is Jake Feinberg. How you doing, brother?
Oh, okay, and you?
I'm doing good, man. Are you ready to hit?
Did you need a 660 second?
Oh, of course.
What's that? Okay, we did 1225. 1712. And one number 4. Okie dokie.
All right, baby. Here we go.
All right, I'm gonna get in my car. 1 second. I can do it from my car. 1 second. Yeah. Okay, I'm here. Who's that,
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And happy 2019, and as I continue along on this sacred journey, interviewing the cats who increased musical vocabulary on the bandstand during a certain period of our cultural heritage, it's always refreshing to connect with old school cats, but guys that I haven't yet made connection with, and get a chance today to speak to a multi-reedist, a guy who was playing with circular breathing and using multiple horns in order to create sonic expansion. And he's played with so many titans, and he's been all around this world. George Braith, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Oh, it's good to be here. It's good to be here, Jake. Wonderful.
No, it's great to talk to you, my man. I wanted to talk to you. You came up with playing the saxophone, and at that time, in our cultural heritage, the saxophone, whether it was an R&B band or early rock and roll or, quite frankly, jazz, the saxophone was the lead instrument. As electric rock came into the fold more and more, the guitar became the lead instrument. And I kind of wanted you to just talk about the way the music felt and how it was structured and how the flow occurred when the guitar was being used primarily as a rhythm instrument and the saxophone was being used as the main lead instrument.
Well, the way I see it and the way it's been for me anyway, it's been the saxophone is the lead instrument and the guitar has been, as you said, a rhythmical, really in the rhythm section, and some soloists, I guess Grant Green sounded like a saxophone on his guitar. Most guitar players, they do a lot of chording.
Yeah, right.
And you see, besides Grant, who else is there who played solo line?
Well, guys like Raleigh Richardson, or
he was R&B. Yeah.
Yeah, like Kenny Burrell, maybe. What I'm trying to get at is like the music. The music was more lilting, and the volume was not near. The dynamics were much stronger when the guitar was primarily a rhythm instrument.
course, Teddy Burrell played, and Wes Montgomery. Well, who else is there? George Benson. Most of the guitars, it's a rhythm type. They play when you take a solo, they be comping behind you, and that's what got me into two-horn playing. I had an organ trio, and sometimes I'd have a guitar player. When I didn't have a guitar player, I'd take up the two horns and kind of comp behind the organ a little bit. That's how I got into playing that two-horn thing.
Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, for me, like my daughter's playing saxophone now, and, we watch clips of, Rasan or whatever. You see live, you see some cats doing it, and or actually my daughter's taking didgeridoo lessons too, so that also requires circular breathing. But can you explain for the layperson what it was about the two horns, or why you felt like that might be appropriate for the quartet or the trio that you had?
Well, actually, with the organ trio, it kind of comped behind it, took the place of the guitar player, do a little comping behind, accompanying him while he was taking his solo. He had enough to do playing the bass and the right hand. I'd do a little comping behind him. But the two-horn solo, to me, I had to develop because I actually harmonized my melody. It's something you make your melody more harmonious when you. And as the years went by, I developed it. Now it's really an accompaniment to the melody line that I'm playing. So it's not.
I did.
Actually, that's what it is. And I'm into getting into counterpoint now with it because I've been doing it for over 40 years, I guess, 30, 40 years, and it's more or less accompanying your solo and making your solo. You don't have to play as many notes to reach a certain harmonic. I mean, you can play two notes, or a note that you would go up to. You can play it right away, and you cut down the time. You get there. You can play more with two horns. Two you can play more. I don't know how come more guys aren't interested in playing two horns.
Because it's really freaking hard, man, to do it good. That's why, man.
Well, actually, if you have a little piano experience, if you play the piano a little bit, it's a lot easier. Because, you're already into harmonies. I guess a lot of people who play single instruments, aren't familiar with playing more than one note at a time. The piano, you play like 6, 7 notes at a time.
This is so great. So great to talk. I saw Gary Bartz a few months ago before Benny Golson concert, and he was like, "Have you talked to George Braith yet?" And I'm like, "Not yet." So it's just this is the perfect tonic. But I mean, just for the lineage point of view, were you the first cat to be playing with multiple horns at the same time?
Well, actually, I'm the first cat that played any song you call out. I'll play the melody and harmonize it too. Like Roland couldn't do that, although he played certain little skits, which was good for introduction.
Right.
And he never really played two horns. He played three horns. He put three horns in his mouth, which is I don't know about that.
So I just want to make sure you were the first. So you were doing what exactly were you doing? That was completely unique and singular with the double horns, just for the record.
What am I doing that's unique? I can play, you harmonize your melody. Any melody you can harmonize. You take your solo, you can harmonize your solo. That's unique. Nobody has done that, We had on two horns. I have a company and I sell these horns now. So, there's guys I give Skype lessons to, and they're learning to do it.
Do you remember like I guess we let in with John Patton, Blue John, and I'm curious about the rhythm when you were in those the organ trio.
Well, that was really my embryonic stage of development. Because I actually had to add on the possibility of playing the full cone. When I first started, I just was only one side of the cone I was playing because my hand was on the top, and I go. But now it's a whole. You can play the whole cone, and so at that time it was an embryonic stage, and I'm surprised that I listen to that stuff now, and it's very interesting I was very limited in what I could play. I heard what I wanted to play, but I couldn't play it.
No, man, but I'm just like, you didn't have a bass player in that trio, right? It was just horn, drums, and organ.
That's right. You mean with Billy Gardner?
Well, I'm just trying to figure who was in that initial trio when you decided to start experimenting with the multiple horns.
It was Billy Gardner, and then I had several different drummers. Hugh Walker played Clarence Johnston, and many different drummers. Because it's always a problem getting the right drummer.
What did you like? I mean, some of these guys, Hugh Walker, Clarence Johnston, Ben Dixon. I think he recently passed away.
Yeah, Ben.
Can you talk about the idea of, we at least, I mean, I'm 40 years old, so I mean, like, my generation grew up, with this understanding that, the bass and the bass has a function of quote unquote locking the groove, and then the drummer's supposed to hold it down and keep the time, and you guys basically were on the bandstand.
That's like the beginning stage. Now today's music is not. I mean, to play actually today, it's not necessarily to do that. I mean, it's not necessarily for the drummer to worry about holding down the time, because the players know how to keep time.
Well, that's what I actually will push back on you and say that your generation was a lot more adept at your own internal time feel and less reliant on the rhythm section. Julian Priester, when he was working with Sun Ra, he had to really rely on his own internal time feel to keep time. He could not, and that allowed the rhythm section to become more melodic and actually say what they needed to say. But I guess I was getting more to the point, like, what was it like to play with a guy who was kicking pedals on the B3 as the bass line, as opposed to what we now know, where bass players, whether it was Stanley Clarke or Jocko or, whatever it was, I mean, it became there became a lot of language because of the bass. Was it easier to play double horns when it was just a cat kicking pedals on the B3?
Well, I found out that the bass. A lot of bass players are really good nowadays. They're guitar players. I mean, they really don't play the bass as the bass used to be played. The bass is the bass. The bass is of something. If you drive a car and you don't have tires on it, it's kind of hard to drive. The tires is the bass. You got to run down the road on the tires. These guys. A lot of bass players now, they play so inside of the chord that they're really not bass players no more, and it's not like before. So the organ player, he used to play actually bass tones, which was wonderful because you can build off of the bass.
Exactly.
There's no bass
exactly.
To build off, then it's a different thing, which it's possible to play without the bass player playing with a bass, but I like a bass. I like to hear a bass player.
Well, I mean,
somebody who actually.
Can you just go a little bit deeper and talk about the way the bass, even just an upright bass player, whether it was Jimmy Garrison, Paul Chambers, or Mingus, how was the bass played, and how is it not played the same way today?
Well, they played off of. See, you can play off of different notes. You can play off the third. You can play off the root. You can play off the fifth. And then you can go higher than that. And say okay, if you're play in a measure and the chord starts, one is of course the root. And if a bass player to begin the song starts off on a different tone, then it gives the tune a different flavor. And then the next chord comes, he don't play the root. The next he may go past the root. It's just that the design that he plays, the bass player plays, can determine what era you actually are playing in. Because before, guys used to play roots. Some bass players actually called Tito.
Wait, what did you used to call? Say what you used to say.
Tito because they go Tito,
yeah.
Tito, do, mi, do, Tito. I mean, that's using so fast. But some guys are Tito's. They play the root, but they play a T in front of it. Some guys play a me in front of it. This is the third. And or say a guy who plays off the fifth, when he gets to the root, they go past it. This is in the beginning of the chord. And basically. If you don't play the root, if you don't play something that suggests the root, it's not going to be solid. It's going to be a different sound.
Well, I mean, I also I just don't hear. I mean, when I talked to Reggie Workman, he said he could go see a set of melodic improvisation. Some people call that jazz, and it's burning and it's great. But the drummers, they may not touch the cymbals one time. There's something about we've lost. Joe Sample said it as well. The cymbals, whether it was Styx Hooper, whether it was Philly Joe, Ben Dixon, whoever, the cymbals were used for serious colors. And those, in some ways, those are non-existent anymore. And I don't know if that has to do with just the.
See, most drummers now they do a lot of rat-a-tat. I call it rat-a-tat, which is annoying. And what is the reason they're doing for it? I don't know. What are they rat-a-tat? You play and it's not even related even to what the guys play. They just rat-a-tat, a lot of rat-a-tat, and it's just no purpose. I mean, it's meaningless. It sounds, I guess they hear Philly Joe play, but he would place it. And all the fellas who place, they rat-a-tat. Elvin Jones, Jimmy Cobb, they place it so that, and it's not a whole lot of rat. Now you see guys play on the drums, you hear like a lot of rat-a-tat.
Well, no, but how much of that has to do with just the mechanization of rhythm now? I mean, are they just used to hearing machine parts and they're just not really taking part in the actual musical?
I think they're trying to emulate Tony Williams. See, right. Tony knew how to do it, where it would enhance the flow and everything. It wasn't just rat-tatting all through the fingers, man. It sounds like a bunch of noise.
Well, how do you work with drummers today and get them to get into the flow as opposed to just making noise? I mean, I think it's really important because I can't stop listening to Wynton Kelly with Wayne Shorter and Philly Joe, or Bags meets Will.
See, I can count on my hands the amount of guys that actually are playing, in accordance with the way the music should be played. Most of the guys, they're just, out to lunch. They just be rat-a-tat, and it sounds like jazz. But for the guy taking a solo, just like the piano. When the piano plays, the soloist, if he's really into the music, you have to tell the piano player, it don't mean nothing by it, but stroll, please, lay out.
Stroll, I dig, man, I dig.
Because the piano player, he'd be all in your way. You may be trying to develop something, and then there's a clash. But, a lot of piano players do it, too. You hear a lot of rat-a-tat on the piano, and then it guides the music, and the music don't go in the right direction, or the direction of a development, other than the basic somatic material, which superimpositions is what really is happening, but people aren't into that.
Well, can you go, what do you mean, what is superimposition?
Well, the music is basic. The in chorus states the basic thematic of the tune, and then you develop tune after that, and you may superimpose related melodies, and if you play the piano, related chords and related. So it's superimpositions is what really is hip. That's what's going. That's what really should be happening on the real side. But a lot of guys, they just play the chords down as they are, and that's the chord. And then next chorus, you hear the same chord. The next chorus, you hear the same chord. Whereas if the music develops, you can hear, I don't know what you hear. You know what I mean?
I do. No, you know what, and I want to ask you, does that have something to do with the idea of taking essentially a street language of jazz and moving it into academia, where all of a sudden there's just such a saturation of material that people are comping all these styles? I mean, truthfully, you guys were autodidacts. I mean, Charlie Parker, he would just listen to everything on the radio, every style of music, and try to learn to play it in every key, but it wasn't like he could hit a rewind button. He just had to hear it and then he would riff on it in his own way. I mean, how much of that has to do with the fact that there's a formula trip going on, almost an assembly line kind of vibe, as it relates to melodic improvisation and how the players are coming out today, sounding the same?
Well, Charlie Parker is great. He is great at innovating, and do you know what note he might have played off of? What he used as a center tone when he played?
No.
What note the guy is playing? Like, okay, James Carter today, you know what note he plays off of?
Which one?
James, he plays off the root. It's like Lockjaw Davis.
Right.
You know, whereas Train played off the fifth. Coleman Hawkins played off the root. Sonny Rollins played off the root. You know, the guys, as each chord goes by, what note are you playing and what part of the chord are you playing off is going to determine your sound, or where you at it will determine, development of the song. This is not, I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Well, no, I mean, I just say, no, this is, I mean, listen, I'm not a musician. I just hear a homogenization of sound as opposed to, well, I mean, for the audience out there, let's take a listen, put in a tune here and with George Braith, and then we'll come back and break it down.
Okay.
You have any idea what that tune is?
What's the name of it? Outside around the corner. What's the name of that?
That's off your album.
Out Here?
Yes, good. Braith on Fire. That's off Extension, Out Here, man. And it's just what's so cool is, again, the diaspora, the African diaspora of the call and response is hypnotic. To me, that's how you elevate. Listen, the musician has to go there first. You can't expect the audience to go there if the musician doesn't go there first. But I truly, in the live setting, would like you to take us through how you, as a leader, helped drive the collective consciousness of the band, how it spread back to the audience, and how it came back to you. because ultimately that is the magic of music. And we've been taught today, my generation and younger, to sit there and stare at somebody's facility while they wank it. And it's really pathetic. And I just want you to talk a little bit about how you learned to elevate the collective consciousness of the group that you were leading.
Well, to begin with, the organ player and I, we went to high school together. We went to a music and art high school here in New York. So, we went through a music appreciation course. Is definitely something that would be great if they had that in jazz. Music appreciation, so people will know. They're not jumbled up, actually, Because I try to play in a way so that as a different chord comes by, I don't want to start the chord on the same note as the chord before. It's a game. It's a game. A lot of guys say, so you have to be it's a game being played. If you start on a different note of the next chord, that's different from the next chord, if you keep going around in a circle, then the tune becomes more dynamic.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is, was that just because did you learn to play every song in every key? How did you learn to unlock your ears to be able to do that?
Well, in my case, I'm the last of 9, and my father played, and he taught us all how to play. And my brothers, it was a big competition. I'm the last.
Oh my God, that must have been out of control, man.
Everybody played, and I was nothing. They get out of here. So I had to try to do something so that at least, hey, yo, I'm still here. Get out of here, little kid. Because my oldest brother, he's 14 years old. He said, you play the instrument? You don't want to play the instrument, do you? And he'd play the trumpet. I said, oh, my God, this guy can play. So I was always trying to be able to play where I was competing with them, So I learned a little differently, and then I listened to there was a lot of piano playing going on, and I heard a lot of music when I was young, and I appreciated hearing. By the time I got into Charlie Parker, oh my God, that was very overwhelming. And but I grew up with Dan Ketton and cats like that, Eddie.
Well, there was. I'm just trying to figure out, because I'm trying to figure out the first time you actually played Birdland.
Oh yeah, well, I had a band from the time I was in 5th grade.
You were not intimidated being the youngest. Since 5th grade, you had a band. So I had a teacher. I used to play a little tonette. I always had a little tonette. Little sure.
Sweet potato, stuff like that. There's no holes in the back, but they have somewhere you put your fingers. I used to drill out the holes in the back.
I love it. This is exactly what people need to be. Yeah, go ahead. Continue.
Like get another note,
Here's the thing. Rest in peace, the great drummer Ndugu Chancellor. He was teaching at USC for a long time, and he said the biggest issue today in music is that you have a lot of talented cats coming from all over the world playing this great black classical music, and they're paying. In some cases, they're getting a free ride, or they're and they've earned it. They're really accomplished musicians, and they tend to play with themselves in academia. They're not for whatever reason. Maybe it's just the current state of our neighborhoods, or the current state of just sort of the idea of culture being pushed off the street, but they're not willing to go and play with the cats who have rubber bands around their horns, who are playing in the street, the blues, man. Can you talk a little bit about the street, how much the culture and the jazz was on the street, and how you took part in that as well? Because the blues was right alongside the jazz. And I just don't hear a lot of blues and jazz. I hear a lot of classicalization of jazz today, So I want you to talk a little bit about the street learning component that you had, and how the music was out on the street when George Braith was coming up.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of cats were alive. Everybody was around, from the Bronx, where all the guys lived. Right in the back of my house, Charlie Parker used to play with this guy, Fassino, Bill Jackson used to come there, Kenny Durham, Thelonious Monk, Elmo Hope, and all those cats.
Oh my God! Are you wait? I'm sorry. Who were they playing with? Satchmo, you said, or who? What was the guy's name?
A guy named Fats Noel. He weighed about 450 pounds, so he didn't come out the house much.
Well, how do you spell his name? How do you spell the name?
Fats is his first name. Noel is his last name.
Satch Noel. And so, this is unbelievable.
Noel.
Yeah.
Fats Noel. I didn't know who they were, these guys playing, but in the air shaft, his house was right across. One of the windows in my apartment, these guys are playing. I didn't know who was playing. I didn't know. It wasn't until later on I was doing the interview on TV on what's that, BGO, and Mill Jackson called and said, "Man, you know who was over." So I didn't know. That was amazing.
Well, I mean, how did you? So those guys were just kind of woodshedding at this cat's house. He was too big to leave the house. But I mean, what?
They come there and hang. They come there and hang. Get a glass of beer or whatever. And they play.
I did.
He had a piano that course, and they be playing. And I could hear right through my air shaft. We had a piano, and we had a violin, piano, trumpet.
That's insane, dude. You're telling me that Kenny Durham and and Bird were over there every day just jamming? That's insane.
Well, they come quite frequently. Milt Jackson, Bud Powell would come with Thelonious Monk.
Oh, I love
this. There was
this.
a chick who lived not too far. She had a baby grand. They used to go up her house, and because they liked her piano, they used to go up and play with her.
Oh, is that you talking about the Baroness?
No, this is in the Bronx.
This is in the Bronx. Yeah, so this is interesting. This is where the rubber meets the road for Jake Feinberg with George Braith. I mean, is it fair to say, two-part question, your discography or your lineage basically starts in the early 60s as a leader on Blue Note Records. Did you ever play as an accompanist on anybody else's records, or were your first records as a leader?
My first record as a lead. Well, my brother had a record company. This is rock, though. He, when we had Sam the Man Taylor, that era.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, my brother had a record company, and he was competing in that, and they used to have me come up to the studio and do sessions. That was not jazz. My first jazz record was with Savoy in 1959. Herman Levinsky. They never did release that. In 1959, I think my first. That was way before Blue Note.
Well, no, hold on. And that was as a leader?
Yeah, I told you I had a band when I was young. I had a teacher who said, "Okay, I'm going to designate George as the leader of the band. He's got that instrument. Everybody else plays conga drums and all that kind of stuff." And we played our Children's Hour on TV, and we used to play on the subway going downtown. We used to play. And I was 11. And there was contests in the Bronx. We won the contest, and then I was able to get a scholarship playing studying in the school up on Tremont Avenue in the Bronx. We always go. So I always had a band. Then I took a test to go to Music and Art High, and I went to Music and Art High, and I played the bassoon. And I started playing with a band outside. I got into the union when I was 13 years old. Me and a big band, Dickens LaRocca. Pete LaRocca was one of the leaders. Hugo Dickens, Pete LaRocca. I played the baritone sax.
Wait, hold on. This is insane. First of all, LaRocca left the music scene and became a lawyer, a cab driver. He was so done with it. But I mean, what?
No, well, Pete LaRocca was in my band. After the big band broke up, he played in my band, and then Sonny Rollins took him out of my band.
Wait, okay. George Braith is no. This was later on. This was later '60s. This is so. You're telling me though that you were playing
in the mid-50s. There was a club downtown. Bob Reisner, who wrote the first book on Charlie Parker, had a club called The Pad, and everybody used to play there. Monk used to play.
The Pad. It was called The Pad. It was called The Pad.
It was called The Pad, and they used to have contests every Sunday. So the old young cats, the best band would play at Birdland opposite whoever was playing there. My band used to win, and we used to play there all the time on Birdland. I was 15, 16 years old. They play opposite Bud Powell I used to play out.
What, like
Billy Taylor. What was this?
I would love to, there were, as you went through your career, I mean, bebop was in its, heyday and in the 50s. And I just remember talking to cats that were in Freddie Hubbard's band when he started to play, I guess, it was more, it was more jazz rock kind of stuff. It was, and a lot of people would come up. A lot of musicians would just come and the vibe was saying, you ain't playing the real shit, man. You ain't playing the real shit. And, the purists, the bop purists. And I wonder, did you, when you started experimenting with two horns, and obviously it was in this gorgeous soul jazz period, you were steeped in R&B, but how would you handle it when somebody's like, what are you doing, man? You're not playing the real shit.
That's what he used to say to me. Matter of fact, he didn't even have a set of drums like that. He had timbales. I got him a set of drums, Peter Roker. And,
this is so great. He was playing I'm sorry, you cut out there. Start over. He had timbales, and what happened?
He had so I asked him to play. I used to have a 10-week gig every summer up in the Catskill Mountains, a place called Paradise Farm, and I used to take bands up there. The bass player, Bill Salters, who used to play with Harry Belafonte.
Yeah, I know that cat. Yeah.
Well, Bill Salters, he was the bass player. We all got in the union the same day together. I was 13.
That, by the way, just for the audience out there, that kid would not be able to happen today. I do not think 13-year-old kid could go to the union and become part of the union. Anyway,
I had to have a signature from somebody, and Garvin Bushell, who was a fantastic reed man at that time, he was my teacher at that time on bassoon. He wrote a note that they let me in 13. So I had to have a note from somebody.
So LaRocca, you're playing double horn, you're playing two horns, and LaRocca's playing timbales, and we're cats like, what do you're not playing the real shit? I mean, how did you because I think you have to have a fearless mentality when you're trying to increase the sonic nature of music, and you're trying to increase vocabulary.
Have you ever heard of Roosevelt Wardell?
Wardell Gray. I've never heard of Roosevelt Wardell.
Roosevelt Wardell was from Baltimore. He played on the level of Oscar Peterson, like that. Phineas Newborn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was up in the mountains playing while we were up there. We learned a lot from him. And he had a band, Rico Henderson, kind of played. There were some cats that, in New York, it was real cats was there all the time. I recently wrote a list of all the guys I grew up with. It's over 200 cats. And, now you can hardly find one or two guys. But it was a big community of guys who played, who were, in the same thing, and it was camaraderie, everything. Nowadays, you get with Marcellus, he's not even communicating.
No, he's not, and it's just the whole thing is completely warped. But I guess my point is that when you talk about guys like Thelonious or LaRocca or like. Was it all music? Were they from the Duke Ellington School? Like it was all music? They were not like they were not pretentious about that. Can you just talk? I mean, because you talk about you said the word camaraderie.
Well, Duke had a different group. That was a different set of cats with a big band. Duke. That was a different set of cats. The cats who from the Bird School, Charlie Parker on it. To the guy. Big band guys.
I love it, dude. I love it. I fucking love it.
A lot of guys can play, but they couldn't really solo. So that's different. They played in big bands. A lot of guys in big bands, they could read and know, but they can't really. It was a different group of cats who could play. Actually, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know you're nailing that. How did you learn to what I love about this Bird School or the Braith cats? It's just you don't repeat any ideas, and there's a beginning and a middle and an end to your solo. I mean, I guess just talking to younger cats out there who are literally wanking it up there and there's nothing worse than watching people wank it for 20 minutes when they're not really saying anything. How do you learn to tell a story or say what you needed to say?
It there was competition, and it was healthy competition amongst everybody, and everybody was trying to compete. You had to tell a story about if you want to compete, and the reason why I guess the people don't know me that much because the guys I competed with, Coltrane and Sonny Rollins, those guys. I mean, those are I really loved the way they played, but I still was trying to compete against them. I mean, that's the way competition goes.
Can you give an example? Can you give an example of the cut sessions that you would have with Train if you went to Peps or something? Like, can you give a story?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll give you. Okay, one night I came off the road and this guy Roger Blank, who died recently, the drummer, he had a loft downtown, and everybody used to go to the loft and play. So I said, "Oh, well, I'd never been there. I said, let me go up there." I just got in town. And this is down on below First Avenue, Houston Street. I went up to the loft, and I went inside there, and so I took my phone out, and there was some cats playing, Clifford Jarvis, Joe Henderson.
Oh, man.
Upset. I said, wait a minute. I'm just, it was Joe Henderson. So anyway, when I took a solo, I just want to take a solo to tell them, man, don't tell me don't play.
Wait, hold on, I want to be clear. Henderson said don't play?
He said, don't play with him. Don't, you're going to stop. He didn't know it was me. He just turned around and said, stop. Hey. Then he said, oh, sure. But then, the way he said that, it kind of upset me.
Right.
So when I took a solo, and it came time we played another song, and I took a solo. And right after my solo, this guy came and tapped on my shoulder. And I was still a little upset. I wanted to turn around and say, man, get over my, what are you doing tapping on? So I turned around and it scared me to death. It was Coltrane. Oh,
whoa.
He said, what was that song you were playing? What?
You're like, I'm just here. I'm just coming off the road, man. I'm just trying to flow through it, man. That's wait, he was, you were.
I was scared, because Coltrane, man, he really, this cat scared me to death. He said, "Oh man, I was just getting ready to go home, but I had to exit. What was the name of that song you were just playing?" So I must have been playing. You couldn't hear the melody. You couldn't hear it, but it was related.
Of course, it was related. No, I mean, George, we're going to have to do part 2. I mean, we've been cooking for 40 minutes already, and we've barely gotten anywhere. I mean, you're just blowing my mind. But can you talk to my generation? Was it, especially in the 50s? I'm doing a documentary on Stan Getz, and Getz. I'm just trying to get this idea that, Bird.
You see, nowadays the music has moved. It's still, those guys, they're playing at a level where you play chords. That's why they're doing what they're doing. But that, it's not at that point now. It's that's why it sounds the way it sounds. If they were playing maybe 30 years ago, it would be okay. Those guys are playing chords. Because the most guys in school, that's what they teach you. The next chord, you do this. Those guys, they learn to play something. The next chord, so they play. They just play chords. They're not really playing a story. I mean, they're not really. It's a different kind of song. That's why it sounds the way it sounds.
Is there anything that you can truly learn? I mean, I'm sorry. Is there any way you can truly increase musical vocabulary in academia, in your mind?
Next time we talk, I'll think about that question.
Okay. Listen, I'm going to get you a copy of this later. You're the man, dude. And are you where are you, in New York? Where do you live?
I live in Staten Island.
All right. Well, when I come back to New York, we're going to do another part 2 on the radio, but I'm going to come see you and do a Facebook Live interview with you as well, man.
I'm down at Fat Cats every third Monday. I've been there for the last 10 years.
Well, I'll be there late February, early March. We'll talk before then, George. But much love to you, man, and thank you for breaking down stuff that's quite honestly very hard to articulate in words.
Okay, I hope that I was of some kind of.
Dude, stop! It's just like Coltrane, man. You were playing your ass. You did great. I'll talk. I
have to practice to live up to that.
Absolutely, brother. We'll talk. Listen, we'll talk soon. It was an honor.
Okay, Jake.
Peace, man.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Okay.
Yeah, later on.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Big thanks to Gary Bartz for hooking me up with George Braith, just a legendary character. And got a big week this week. Mark Levy coming up on the Jake Feinberg Show. Michael Shreve, Part 4. We'll be back. Until then, peace.